Okay. So the first thing that you're going to do is read through the article and do your annotations. Okay, so I will read the first couple of paragraphs with you and kind of point out things that maybe if I were annotating, I would note. And then I'll give you a few minutes to finish reading on your own, and then we will go through and write the paragraph together. Okay, so as long as you just follow along and copy down the paragraph that we build together, then you'll get a good grade on this first one. Okay, so this article is called Attention Students, Put Your Laptops Away. For the source, this is where we normally would have like an author's name. Notice that it just says npr.com. So later on when we're writing, that's who we're going to use as the author. And this is from April 2016. So I'm going to read the first 4 paragraphs. Okay, they're pretty short. And then I'll tell you kind of what I would notice, but you can also kind of, as I'm reading, you can also mark down things that you find interesting or important. Okay. As laptops become smaller and more ubiquitous means commonplace, and with the advent of tablets, the idea of taking notes by hand just seems old-fashioned to many students today. Typing your notes is faster, which comes in handy when there's a lot of information to take down. But it turns out there are still advantages to doing things the old-fashioned way. For one thing, research shows that laptops and tablets have a tendency to be distracting. It's so easy to click over to Facebook in that dull lecture. And a study has shown that the fact that you have to be slower when you take notes by hand is what makes it more useful in the long run. In the study published in Psychological Science, Pam A. Mueller of Princeton University and Daniel M. Oppenheimer of the University of California, Los Angeles, sought to test how note-taking by hand or computer affects learning. When people type their notes, they have this tendency to try to take verbatim notes and write down as much of the lecture as they can, Mueller tells NPR's Rachel Martin. The students who were taking longhand notes in our studies were forced to be more selective because you can't write as fast as you can type. And that extra processing of the material that they were doing benefited them. Okay, so in these first like 4 paragraphs here, okay, there's a few things that I feel like I want to remember or that I think are interesting. So here's what I have highlighted. I highlighted the idea that typing your notes is faster, okay, which can be helpful if you've got a lot of information. I also highlighted that there's a study that has shown that you have to be slower when you take notes by hand, and that makes it more useful in the long run. I also highlighted that extra processing of material was beneficial. Okay. Let's see. Like if I didn't know what verbatim meant, I might kind of like be like, maybe I would look it up and write it down for myself. Okay. Verbatim means like word for word. Okay. So like I could do something like that so then I could remember, right? If there was like something that I wanted to look up or, okay. So you don't have to have these things highlighted or underlined because this, annotations are your own personal thoughts. This is just what I personally thought was important from this portion of the article. And you can see like this middle paragraph, I don't have anything highlighted, okay? So it's not like you have to have something highlighted in every single one. So what you're going to do now is you're going to continue reading this article. Okay, it's not very long. You will continue reading and continue annotating. So highlighting or underlining or making note of things that you think are important or interesting about this idea of taking notes by hand versus taking notes on your computer. Okay, I'm going to give you like 5 or 6 minutes. There's not very much of the article left to do that, and then we're going to write the paragraph together. Okay, so you don't have to write the paragraph on your own. We will write it together. Okay. All right. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to finish up reading the article. Like I mentioned, it's not terribly long. So you can see here's some other things that I've highlighted. And as you can see, like I have definitely not highlighted something from every single paragraph, so I don't expect you to. I don't want you to feel like, okay, I'm being graded for annotation, so I have to highlight every single thing that's in the article. No, that's not beneficial either, right? It's really about figuring out what is going to be helpful for you and what's going to be important for you to be able to reference again quickly when we're writing your paragraphs. So unlike last semester, like I mentioned, we're not writing a summary. So because we're not writing a summary, you're not going to need to like include the author's name and the article title in your topic sentence like we have in the past. So each week, you will see at the end of the article your prompt. Okay, so like for this week, our prompt is, should students take notes by hand or on their computer? Write a paragraph using the Schaefer method and provide direct textual evidence from the article to support your position. Okay, so instead of writing a summary, we're going to take a position and then defend that position, because that's what you do in argumentative writing. So I know that it has been a minute since we have gone over Schaefer method. I'm not going to go through the entire presentation, but I just want to go through a couple of the slides to remind you of what Schaefer method is. So if you remember, the first part of Schaefer method is your topic sentence. Okay, that's your main idea, and it's something that you have to prove. So for these paragraphs, it's going to be like your answer to the prompt. Okay, so in this circumstance, it will be your answer to, should students take notes by paper or on their computer, right? You're answering the prompt in your topic sentence. The second part is the concrete details. So if you remember, these are the facts, the quotes, the examples from the text that support your topic sentence, okay? So we always put these in red. They cannot be argued with. They support whatever you said in your topic sentence. So if in your topic sentence, you're going to say that students should use computers to take notes, then your concrete detail needs to prove that that is beneficial. Then you have your commentary sentences. So remember, this is like your analysis, your interpretation, sort of explaining how your facts prove your point. Okay. Remember that there's always 2 of them for every one concrete detail. And then you have your concluding sentence, which restates your main idea in a different way. Okay. So we have those 4 elements for a total of 5 sentences because you have 2 commentary sentences. Okay. So your paragraphs at a minimum need to be 5 sentences. They can be more if you choose to include an additional concrete detail. Okay. So just, I know that was like just a quick breeze through, but I know we've gone over Schaefer method extensively. I just want to remind you of those pieces of it because I know that it's been quite some time since we've actually gone over it. Okay, so together we're going to write our response to this. One thing that I really want to make clear to you, if I could put this in like 200 size font, I would. Do not use personal pronouns in your paragraph. Okay, personal pronouns are things like I, me, my, we, things like that, right? That is a very like informal way of writing and kind of like a very elementary way of writing. Okay, we're in high school. We want you to write professionally and formally so that you are in the style that you need to be in for the rest of high school and on into any career that you might go into, okay? So personal pronouns have a place, right? When you're writing in your journal, of course, you're gonna use personal pronouns because you're reflecting on your own experience. But when you're doing something like article of the week or writing a paper, you don't use any of that. You don't need to say, in my opinion, right? Like I know that it's your opinion because it's what you're writing. So you wouldn't write something that's not your opinion. It's repetitive and redundant. You don't need to say it. Okay. Same thing like I think. Absolutely not. Do not say that. Do not say in this paragraph, I am going to. No. Okay. I just proved how blah, 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 blah. No, do not use personal pronouns. Okay. It's like the #1 thing that will make me throw out your paragraph. Okay. Just don't do it. So Instead, we just need to write our topic sentence in a way that gives our opinion without using, like, without saying I think or I believe or anything like that. So the easiest way to write your topic sentence is to look at your prompt, okay? So my prompt says, should students take notes by hand or on their computer? So I have two options, right? I can either say that they should take them by hand or that they should use their computer. So there's really nothing else that your topic sentence should say other than answering like which way you think. Okay, so you can just use that language to restate as your topic sentence. So like I'm going to say students should take notes, and then I'm either going to say by hand or I'm going to say on their computer, depending on which one you want to argue. It's up to you. There's evidence to support either one. I'm personally going to put by hand because I think that there's more evidence to support that. But if you want to say on their computer, there's definitely quotes that you could use to back up that opinion. Okay, and that's it, period. That's your topic sentence. Like, people get so, I don't know, bent out of shape about what a topic sentence should be. I'm just literally, I mean, there's not a single word that I use that's not in the question. I'm just rephrasing it as an answer, okay? I'm not saying I think, I'm not saying I believe, I'm not saying in my opinion. You state it as a fact. Students should take notes by hand. Okay? What's the next thing that we need? What comes next in a Schaefer paragraph? A concrete detail. Okay, so that's going to be something from the text. So here's where your annotations come in handy, right? So I'm going to put something like, for example, because you have to have some kind of a sentence starter. You can't just throw a quote in there and call it good. You have to have something that introduces your quote, that starts your sentence. So I'm just going to put, for example, as a placeholder for now, and then I can go back and edit if I need to. So I'm going to go back into my article now, and I'm going to look for a quote that really highlights why students should take notes by hand. Okay, and so I'm going to look through, and this is where your highlighting helps, because you can say like, okay, does that help prove my point? Does that help prove my point, right? Until you find something that you feel like really shows why you answered the question the way that you did, okay? So looking through your article, is there anything that you see that you feel would be good to use as your concrete detail? So really, when it comes to this article, it's kind of showing all these reasons why like taking notes by hand adds, like, you get more benefit because it's helping you like encode the information better. You're processing the information more. So that's going to be the kind of quote that personally I would look for if I was the one writing this assignment. So I'm going to look at like this sentence here. The students who were taking longhand notes in our studies were forced to be more selective, and that extra processing that they were doing benefited them. Okay, I like that this talks about a research study. So that's like, you know, stronger evidence than just like some random person like having an opinion. I like that it talks about like how it's benefiting them because it's giving them more processing, right? So I'm just going to copy this quote. I'm just going to do Command C, and then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to paste it into my paragraph. Okay, but now that it's pasted in here, I have to consider whether or not the sentence makes sense, right? So for example, the students who are taking longhand notes in our studies, blah, 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 blah. it still reads pretty well. It still makes sense. But if I am writing this for someone who's never read this article before, they might be kind of like, well, what are you talking about, right? So I want to add in a little bit more background information so that the quote makes a little more sense, right? I want to give it some more context. So I'm going to say, like, for example, researchers have found, and then I'm going to start the quote. Okay. It just helps add like a little context, like, oh, okay, they're talking about a research study. And then you get the quote about what the study found, right? Versus just getting like a quote about what the study found and being like, well, wait, what are they talking about? I didn't, right? There was no indication that there was a study or anything. Okay. One other thing that you can do that I think is really helpful is if there's a part of a quote that you don't really like or you don't think is that helpful to proving your point, you can take it out and replace it with what are called ellipses, which is like a 3 periods, right? Dot, dot, dot. So like this quote to me is just a little long. So I'm going to take this part out. It doesn't really add very much to what I'm saying. And then I'm just going to replace it with 3 periods. And then that tells my reader there was something else here that I took out. So then a reader could go back and find the original quote if they wanted to. Okay. But you really want to make your quotes 3 lines is kind of like the longest that you should ever have a quote. Any longer than that, and you need to start cutting stuff out or picking a different quote. Your writing is what should be the majority of the paragraph, not whatever the quote is. Okay. What's one last thing that I need to include with this quote? I will need to put that next. Yeah, my commentary. But for the quote itself. What else do I? Yes, where I got it from, right? I need to cite my source. So we talked before that the author is just listed as npr.com. So that's all I'm going to put. Okay, I'm going to erase this period on the inside, and I'm going to put npr.com in parentheses and put the period on the outside. So that just gives my reader like, okay, that's where you got that information from. You're just giving credit to the person who originally wrote those words because you did not originally write that information. Okay. All right, next we're going to do our commentary sentences like Fiona mentioned. So these are where you add your own kind of analysis and explanation, like you're really kind of proving how this quote proves what you're trying to say here. So like in my topic sentence, I said that they should take notes by hand. Here's this evidence that I've given you. Now I'm going to explain why that proves my point. Okay. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. One thing that I sometimes like to do is acknowledge like the other side of the question. So we said, should it be by hand or computer? I might kind of say something like, although taking notes by computer is faster, right? So I'm like acknowledging that like, yes, there is a benefit to the other side. Studies such as this show that writing by hand is much more effective. Okay. I don't know. Okay. You wouldn't have to write all, you could have something different. I don't know. Okay. And then you need another one, right? You need 2 commentary sentences for every one concrete detail. So I need to add in another commentary sentence. So you just want to like explain or analyze, how your quote again proves what your topic sentence said. Therefore, students should be encouraged to write out their notes whenever possible, right? I don't know. Again, like this isn't like the best paragraph that I've ever written, but at the end of the day, what we want for you guys is I don't expect you to become like some, you know, author of like argumentative research papers or something. If that's where your path goes, that's awesome. But I know for most of you, it's not. So what you need is just like a decent paragraph that like is acceptable, right? It doesn't have to be the best thing that's ever been written. We just want it to be like legible and make sense and get you through high school and college. Okay. And then your concluding sentence is the last piece, and it needs to restate your topic sentence. Okay. And I mean, that could be something as simple as like, this is just one reason why students should take notes by hand or something. Okay. Students. So again, it doesn't have to be something fancy. I feel like sometimes when people write paragraphs, they just try to do too much. It can be really simple, right? It doesn't have to be something extravagant or like super crafty. It can just be very basic, okay? The idea in writing is you tell them, right? You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them again, and then you tell them again. I know it seems repetitive, but you want to like really hammer home your point, okay? So that's why you repeat basically your main idea in your topic sentence and in your concluding sentence. Okay, any questions on anything? So you can see here, I never mentioned the article title. I never mentioned the author other than in my citation here, okay? So your purpose for writing is very different. You're not summarizing. You're taking a position on what the article was about, okay? I'll leave that up for a few minutes, but if you are done copying it down, then you can submit as long as your annotations are done. Okay.